right, guys. So back with you here on Friday afternoon, kind of early afternoon, and clearly second place winner in the polling today was for Ethereum. Oh, was that? Yeah. Oh, yeah. That was it's pretty close between Ethereum and Neo. All right. So if I have time, I'll come back. We'll look at Neo as well. If not, maybe I can catch up on that over the weekend. Now, so same thing here, right? So we've been over this count, God, so many times, right? So just the basic, right? I'm not worrying about the subdivision. Just the basic ideas here. Well, okay, I can see a pretty clear 5 going up. Looking here, just first glance, right? Not working through any subdivision. Sure looks like 5's gone in, going down. 5 up, 5 down. Well, right. So does that? Right, so the Elliott here, and we'll look at it with and without. But just right, as I try and emphasize, when Elliott is most useful is when it's just kind of hard to miss. There's a little nuance here in this move off of the low here because we have parity. We'll get there in a second. Basic, right? How simple can I get it? Well, if we're just looking at that in the context of simple Elliott, you'd kind of be inclined to do something along those lines. So, here's the A, B. So are we there? Let's just lay a little roadmap here. Just kind of laying out. Something like that. If we go 786, that would be interesting. So. What that does here, right? So we'd lose that sell side algo, puts the 100 there. If you're going to get it at here, you kind of left in between. Well, shit, we get it here. No way to know, right? So the idea is, I'm digressing a little bit. So A, B, C, something along those lines. Here we put here's point of control, right? Lots of market acceptance, all the base that we built before we went up. Well, maybe, right? So we'll get there, right? But let's just look at what can we see here without the Elliott. That Elliott is definitely not particularly bullish. I've looked here. Is there another way we could consider this? So one of the first things, of course, right? So we've done this before, all right? So just swing high to swing low. We've got a break here of from the swing to the low. So we lose the buy side algo here. At least for the short term, right? So we don't now. If we get something, if we push up and then there's another 50, right? We can get them back on board. But right now we don't have anything to work with here. Now that's a 4-hour. I should mention I'm over here on Coinbase or Coinbase Pro, perhaps the way to say it. Just at first glance, right? That would be your initial thought. Okay, well, right? Well, we won't worry about the the subdivision just yet. 5 followed by 5, right? So hard to just in the most rudimentary Elliott context get bullish about that. I mean, sure, this if we're going to get a move like that, there's plenty of juice there. What are we talking about from? Let's call it 195 to 295. So you got $100 sitting right there. If we're going to go up that high, which big if we're going to go up that high, which would set up the potential move lower. Right now, nothing says that's inevitable and that it must follow that path. But if you were just rudimentary Elliott, just throwing that up there, that's likely what at first glance what you'd see. So let's take that off just for a sec. All right. So without Elliott, all right. Let's say we, for whatever reason, either you're like, shit, man, I'm an Ethereum bull. I don't care what the wave count says. Show me how I can get bullish here. I don't know that that's your stance. I'm just trying to approach this from some different perspectives so we can de-emphasize the Elliott. So my first thought here, and we've looked at this before, is to look at Pitchfork. So I go, okay, well, I can probably something along these lines here. Well, if I'm using the outside pivot here, we've looked at that before as a sign of weakness that we don't get to the median line, right? That sets up a move equal to, well, in this case, right, would be a big sell-off, equal to or greater than the move that failed to get there. Right, now, you move it over a pivot, right, it looks a little better. I get right on that there, right? So we just miss here, but then we get it there, right? So who's right, right? How do you know? There's a little bit of subjectivity in the market. But then I thought, well, what else is there to play with here? Right, and this a lot of times it's just experimentation can lead you to something that you hadn't seen before. So then I thought, well, let's try the My partner Quan likes this a lot. This is the pitch fan, which is just a variation on a pitchfork. It's using some of the pitchfork. Oh, let me get this drawn here. So I tend to use it only with the 50. Get that right on there. Okay, so here's the framing of the pitchfork. Here's the 100%. This is your framing just done. So you're getting what would be called the warning lines, right? So let me put a pitchfork on that so you can see how that relates. So if I go up here, right, you see that. Now we bring it down, right? So that's often how you'll see it if you're looking at books on trading median lines. These warning lines here were, you know, of note here. So here's the 50. Here's our center line. So there would be your pitchfork. Now we're far enough outside of that I don't think that's relevant anymore. So looking at that, so of course, what's the first thing your eye is drawn to, right? Well, so we've got a pretty substantial trend line right here. So right, we've tagged the center line here, but that made me think, okay, well, that trend line is important. So let's take a look there. So back to our channeling idea. So if just working from the low, then connecting the next low, then connecting if I can get right, let's get right on it. Well, no, look what I get there. So I've got, now I'm looking here going, wait a minute, I can connect a few more things right here. So this trend line looks pretty important to me. All right, I've got 3 tags of it, so I would consider that our support line. So from here, I'm noticing, well, I get this, right? We get a little bit of a miss here, but I catch this just right. I mean, it's enough there where 1, 2, 3, 4, I've got 5 touches. That kind of gets my attention. So I want to keep that in play. So at this point now, I've got a potential pivot down here that could be significant, right? So as we look at it, just channel aside, just trend line support. Right, so we have a series of, on the way up, we had a series of higher highs. Now we get the correction, right, but we hold the upsloping trend line. Now you could, if you were concerned about it, I don't think it's not necessary, but you could clone this up, right, and then work to catch up here. But in the process of doing that, trying to connect up there, I realized, oh, wait a minute, I've got other channels here that I can connect. So I'm looking. So I'm over here. Let me change this color here. So let's go to white here. And I noticed this. So if I connect these 3, so it looks like I get these 3 almost just perfectly. Get that right there. So as that broke here, that was the prior support line here. As that broke, we go into the lower channel. You know, I'm still just kind of looking here, saying what else is there. So I noticed that if I connect these, right, and then bring down here, I get this connection. I'm gonna get it right on there. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4, I connect there. So I like this channel on the way up. Right now, again, what does that have to do with over here? I'm just showing you, demonstrating the technique. So as I'm connecting that support line with these 2 lines here, so the market gives it to me. So as we break here, here's your sell signal. If I recall, this was technical too. Right, so here's the 50. Right, so that's just the kind of thing, right? If you're uncomfortable taking the market screaming higher, you're uncomfortable taking that 50 as it comes down and we break that trend line, that can be your entry. Where's your, right? This would have been a reasonable spot to be looking for a reaction. You got it, right? But then, so interestingly, now as we connect all of it, this becomes the resistance. Right, so this is something that you'll see a lot with channels. If you get a break like this, now we're testing from below, right? And look what we do, down to the other channel, right? So, right, look like maybe a possible path. Just something to keep in mind, right? Just kind of demonstrating how you can approach this without any Elliott. So with that now gone, I don't need to keep that in the market. But of course, right, just staying consistent, we can do the exact same thing here. Let me change this color. Let's go, we'll go to green here so I can connect. Now that's taking me too far. So I want to kind of, actually I'm going to do it this way. I'm going to connect from this pivot. Can I get all of that contained? Well, if I get right here and then I bring over here, well, now I'm getting the first little signs of potentially a break outside of that channel. So I've got pretty, excuse me, there's nothing really else to connect to here. So even if I go here and just extend it a little bit, right? So where else would you go? You might look here. But I think this does it for us here. I don't see any need for anything else. So if this is gonna, if we're gonna stay with this break, we have a little potentially a 1-2 or it depends what we don't know what that's going to turn into. But this would be, anything up here would be potentially a point of significance. So if we can break that, now we're breaking through, right? Then you're now rethinking, okay, so if I can get through, right, if I can get through, then back for the test, right, of this long, now established potential would be support line, right, where here it's resistance. If I can get up and get going, then all the better, right? So, but we're not there yet. So because of the steepness of this, you know, I start measuring swings, saying, well, can I build a case for anything technical here? So I just looking at the most rudimentary look at it. Well, here's my 1618. So if I'm going 1, 2, or AB, here's my 1618. So you might just at first glance be thinking, oh, wait a minute, 1, 2, is that my 3, right? That's my high probability zone for it. 4, 5, well, maybe not. So we'll look at the Elliott count in a second, but just swing relationships, right? So I get, it's a little bit of a front run. It looks like there's potentially this structure was involved here, if I get that right on it. So tag, resistance, gets through, back to tested from above. It's not to the tick. Duly noted here, but could it be that's because this trend line, right? Connection, is that what holds it? Hard to say. There's also, well, let me pull this off here. I noticed this as well. Yeah, I'll leave that here. Let me open this up a little bit. All right, again, no Elliott, just looking for swing relationships or algo pulls where can I see what the algorithms did last? Well, if I go swing high to, oh, pardon me. Let me do it this way. So if I go from this pivot to this pivot, okay? So I come up here, you can see from the, God damn it, from the low, we bounce right to this. So we hit this channel right as we hit the 38. Now we start down, but we've yet to reach target. So you start looking around going, is that just is the trend line support what denies us there? Is there another pivot I could consider? Well, I can look to this lower pivot here, and that gets it almost exactly. So it's not the dominant, right? But they're not obligated to use the dominant. They're going to use what they're going to use. We're just trying to figure out, well, here's the 50. Now that's to the tick. So now perhaps I have something here, but I'm a little suspect of it because this is a secondary pivot. Well, then it occurs to me so that we can go in this technique here, which is David Halsey, right? Whose book I often mention as he was the first to write about this algorithm. So one of his techniques is that if the high to high misses the 50, that you can go low to low. And if we go low to low, well, then we're right to the golden zone. And note here, we get to the tick. All right. Now, my observation is that, let me get it right on that, is that not always, but with a high degree of regularity, the low to low at the 50 of the golden zone will be an exact match to the 38. All right. So, and myself being an Elliott trader, it made me realize, oh, wait a minute, that can just be that. Right, so it fits in an Elliott context where you're looking for that retracement at the 38, but in this context, right, again, we get left hanging on that target. So who's right? We're not going to know until we see do we break out of this 65. But that is worth noting. That gets us there as well as using this pivot, right? So we can build a case. This is to the tick. We can build a case for a technical low here in conjunction with that pivot, pardon me, with that trend line that we drew from those first two pivots, right? From this. Okay, this pivot's got my attention. So is that enough? Is that enough to build a case for a long position? Well, so here's where the Elliott can be helpful, right? So having been through recognizing, okay, this was very steep, but we're starting to break through it. Now that's not enough really to call it a breakthrough. But you know, if we get something over the weekend here, well, so of course that center line is going to be some resistance. Note the Vegas wave is right there as well. So if we can get through that, that would be the next thing you'd be looking for. And you're going to have some of this structure here to deal with. Looks like Well, you can just kind of see it over here. So you're going to have all of this market acceptance that would relate to all of this market acceptance here to get through. So there will be selling pressure here. So if we look at that just dominant to dominant, right, high to low, got to get through all this. So this will be pretty stiff resistance. Now we come back to thinking in an Elliott context. If this is an A coming down, and I don't know that we have the pivot there yet, we'll look at that. If that were a B, then there's your C. Now you put the whole thing back together and you go, oh, okay, well that's mighty deep. Boy, if that's a completed impulse, could that even work? And again, I'm not planning the A wave there because I don't think we're done there. But could that work? Well, let's just look at it. Swing high to swing low. Well, we'd be deep, so you'd have to go 887 on that to get that. Can we cover that? Pretty big target down here. If we're going to follow that, so you've got a pretty. Well, I 887 is kind of a last resort. Median lines. Again, I'm unclear about that. Now, do we go this high? We go here, right? You kind of start lining it up and you go, oh, that looks kind of interesting. Golden corner. So let's go look here. Say, could we be done here, right? We've just looked at some technical confluence there. We have the channel, we got the trend line, we've got a wave count. Can the wave count support that? Take that off. Excuse me. So I'm gonna take this off just so we can dig into that last little leg here. So sorry, guys. Excuse me. Well, that's not a great looking 5. Let's go down. Let's go to a one hour here. Can we finish down here? Does it look like there's enough? Well, at first glance, just eyeballing it, sure looks like 3. So we can't finish with a 3. It's toughy. Well, so can we be done here? So if you work backwards, so you can work backwards and think, oh, okay, looks like I got an ABC here. And if I pull from the high to low, here's a likely front run on the 50. It's likely all that we're looking at. So if this were the 1, 2, well, would it be long enough? Let's just consider that. So if we're coming from this, if this is a 1 and that's a 2, yeah, we would be long enough. So the thought being, could we potentially have? It's kind of ugly. Could we have an expanding diagonal here? So you might be thinking, oh, Jesus. Boy, that ain't pretty. So God, would you have to do it this way? 3, 4, 5. Let me take that up. Let's go subminuet. Can't say I love that. It actually looks like you might have a triangle here in the B. Maybe right here. So let's wick that off here so we can see the clear overlap here. So remember, in a diagonal, you're looking for something technical between the start of the 1, the pivot of the 3. So do we get it? Yeah, it's likely that's a front run on the 50. So I can't say I love this. If that's the 4, well, is there a workaround here? Let's just look at this. Potentially now you could. I don't want to work into too much of a force fit, but you could have 3, 3, 5 here, which would spare you the overlap. It's a tricky one, right? So if you go here, you end up with an impulse. So let's just think about that for a second. I know I got so much shit on here. Let's get that out of here. We'll leave that on. If you're thinking this, now let's see. If this is the 1, fuck, wrong tool. If this is the 1, and that's the 2. So 1272, it doesn't quite help me a lot in terms of, the precision. I can get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I can get an impulse here. So you'd be looking at this, thinking expanded flat. So you'd have to do it that way. God, I just did that in Bitcoin, so I'm doing that somewhat reluctantly. Thinking, right, I don't want to force fit here. So what we're talking about here is, see, it actually works better as a diagonal, right? Because you'd be talking about an expanding diagonal. So I think, so I'm going to rethink that, right? Because of that. So I think we want to go with a diagonal here. So that would put us here, 1, 2, 3. It is long enough. So if we bring it back down here, so we are long enough. So 3 is longer than, okay, right. So, all right. So there are conditions on these. All right. So let's get that on there. Okay, 3 longer than 1, 4 longer than 2. Now 5 needs to be longer than 1. So if that 4 is right, so let's just lay it out here. All right, so there's 100. So this would do it here. We just have to be longer. Now, you know, in a perfect scenario, right? You're gonna come all the way down here. All right, I'm not so much a purist that I would insist on that. Right, I'd be comfortable down here. I'm just trying to think if there's something I'm missing here. Well, even if you, so that you'd be trying to finish this as a diagonal, but boy, that is question mark. All right, so let me pull back out here. Iffy. Can't say I love it, right? You wouldn't draw that up on and say, oh, I hope I can finish down here, you know, something like this, right? Does that look likely? Well, note here, there's the larger, interesting layer. So if we come down, if I bring this all the way down, now that's going to be that's an extreme extension in the 5. The other, well, so here's what I'm wrestling with. All right, so here's the dominant to the dominant. Here's our pivot, right? So if we're thinking 38 is going to hold it in an Elliott context. There's 2 ways we can do it. We can pull from the 2 to the 4, right? Here's the 50. Here would have put our target down here, which was consistent with what we were looking at before. Now, this is me, right? This is me personally. I would not insist that we're going to maintain that lower trend line. That's me. If I got this in this zone, I'd be comfortable calling this last little diagonal complete. All right, so give us a potential A wave. So all I'm trying to do is complete the A wave here. So because I'm dealing with 5 down, if I can complete it down here in this range, again we'll use this, right? Knowing I've got the larger algo target down here. If I can complete that, then we got to use this, right, to come up for the B and the C. So much of crypto, right? Is the Elliott, is it helping or hurting? Well, let's use our channel technique here. So let's go back to this, all right, which is kind of where we left off. We get that channeling here. So with this starting to break through here, so the question becomes if that's not the 4. So your first question should always be, let's assume I'm wrong. Okay, so if I'm wrong and we come up here and we start to move this weekend, well, you're likely back here. You're looking for a way to finish down here, and I don't see a great one. Yeah, we'll have to cross that bridge when we come to it. I would not be comfortable recommending a buy there based on the trend being down. How about we say it that way? Elliott aside, lower lows, lower highs, right? There's no reason to be jumping into a long here. Partly because we can't finish the 5 here cleanly, and partly because you'd be going seriously counter trend, and knowing while you might get a little movement out of here, you're not likely to be just ripping straight. I mean, likely, right? So odds are it's not just going to rip straight 200 points over the weekend. I mean, not again, odds are, right? We've seen that in crypto before, so it's going to take an event. So, yeah, I can't give you a trade there, much as I'd like to. I wouldn't. If I wouldn't buy it, I can't advise you to, unless you, for some reason, you're just dying to get long. I don't think you can finish. I don't think you can turn this 5 into an ABC. It's still a correction that's not complete. I looked at it, right? Can we WXY it down here to get it to finish WX? Can we? Maybe. But so right off the bat, remember an X. All right, if you were thinking WX maybe, well, we want an X to go 618. We don't get it. We do get the 50, right? As I showed you before, which has you more inclined to be thinking, again, I'm not worried about the subdivision there, but just dominant to dominant. We get the 50, we blow right through, right? It's all the way to third target before we get, well, here we get a little sideways. So this looks like classic 4, right? In here is all very classic 4. So is there enough there to be a buyer? Well, it's not for me. But even then, you're trying to buy, you're trying to pick the low. If you're down here, well, so note what happens. If we come down here and get that 100, we're breaking this long upsloping, channel / trend line. You're breaking that. Now so as soon as you break it, right? If we do, right? If you break it, now that's resistance you got to get through. Right? So if you come down here, it's gonna be a hard fight to get that to come back up, and all the more you're looking for. I should draw this more accurately. You're looking for a 3 because we completed a 5, so you'd be looking for the next move down. Unfortunately for bulls, right? I can't put together anything that's particularly bullish here. Yeah, it's just not there, guys. Trust me, I'm rooting for alt season, but I don't see it yet, right? And this will likely be one of the tells that Ethereum is starting to go. So there we go. That's 26 minutes. Shit, I didn't mean to go that long. Okay, lots to chew on there. Sorry for the length on that. Just unresolved, right? So much like we're dealing with Bitcoin, we have unresolved Elliott analysis. So if the channel's enough for you, right, you could at least use that for your stop. How about we say it that way? All right, guys, there you go. There's lots to chew on. I wish I could give you a trade. I just don't see it yet. All right, back to you later.